cryptographic migration is hard. And in industry, I can tell you that it's always a competing priority. I'm Daniel Shiu. I've been working in cryptography and cybersecurity for many years in government, academia, and industry. A lot of people these days are talking about cryptographic migration, and this is a journey I've been on before, and I'd really like to help with the current issues. Government, at least, does have good hard deadlines for when cryptographic migration does have to take place. But when we get round to finally migrating the old products, we find that the initial users have changed, the initial procurers have changed, and the equipment that we have to change is often in the middle of deployment or undergoing operational use. Suddenly asking for somebody to ship a battleship halfway across the world to swap out some old cryptography is always going to be an awkward ask. Working out which bit of the battleship to take the armor plating off so you can change the equipment behind, an even bigger ask that can easily take these things out of operation for a long, long time. So instead, where operational priorities take precedence, there's always a willingness to let the deadlines slide a bit, to permit extensions, permit exceptions and migrations and mitigations, and it just drags and drags and drags, and it's never, ever easy. And in industry, I can tell you that it's always a competing priority. It's very, very hard to justify the expense of cryptographic migration when there are so many other things busy going on, a lot more clear and present priorities to deal with. Boards are always going to be reluctant to spend money for no apparent benefit just to sort of safeguard the future, when there's things that they could be doing today that are in much more operational presence. They only really understand it when they're actually leaving, which is when it's too late and really things should have been done before, but people who are in charge of these decisions are going to take the fall for it. So working in academia, I know that cryptographic migration always takes a long, long time, and it's very rarely done properly to completion. Looking back over the history of these things, I don't know if you know the story of the MD5 hash function, but this is an example of very early cryptography from the dawn of time almost, 1991 if you will. And even as it was being designed, cryptographic design wasn't that mature of a subject, and people were a bit unsure as to exactly how safe it was. Nevertheless, people wanted something out there and hurried it through standardizations and implementations and integrations. But all the same time, the academic cryptographers were getting more and more reason to worry about it. Soon it got to the stage where, yes, they were very convinced that it did represent a serious risk, but nobody wanted to change their cryptography. Eventually, the risks became so big that a group of academic researchers was able to demonstrate a serious vulnerability. They forged a certificate that shouldn't have been allowed for the World Wide Web and issued it. Well, as soon as people realized that certificate forgeries were possible, they took action and they banned those researchers from ever applying for a certificate again, rather than address the problem. Brushing it under the carpet didn't work very well. It wasn't very long afterwards that the flame malware appeared in the Middle East. All of a sudden, there was this very, very dangerous spyware on everybody's computers out there that was being recognized as legitimate software because it had been signed by an automatic signing service that still used the MD5 hash function. And it's precisely that vulnerability that caused it to have that fake authentication. People were now a bit more motivated to remove MD5 from usage, and they spent many years trying to take it out of all the various standards, out of all the implementations, out of everything new. But the legacy stuff still persisted. And surprisingly, even as recently as 2024, you could still find MD5 in widespread use. And if you heard about the blast radius vulnerability a couple of years back, again, in the radius protocol, MD5 hash function was being used. And again, the cryptographic researchers had shown that it's a clear and present danger that could lead to data breaches even today. So, it's rarely a good sign. It's always a headache. It's never done to completion. It's never done soon enough. And it's always got to try and compete with other budgetary reasons. But now, everybody's talking about cryptographic migration and the urgency of changing as we hit the quantum era. And I believe in this very, very strongly. I've been tracking the development of quantum technologies and how imminent quantum computers are. I've been tracking the development of cryptanalysis and exactly the resources that are going to be required of the sufficiently large quantum computer. And I agree with a lot of the experts that it is becoming a more imminent threat. And we're seeing the big tech companies announcing sooner timelines for migration than they previously anticipated, 2029, 2028 in some cases. This is all very well, but how can we help people on that journey? We can easily say, as the academics are all too happy to do, there is an issue, there is a problem, and things have got to change. but too little help is often offered to see how that has to happen. It's easy to set deadlines and timelines and timetables for change, but without helping people through the steps, what are the people supposed to do? We understand that, yes, there's a well-agreed process to go through cryptographic migration. Firstly, everybody should be doing a discovery and documentation exercise to understand their current use of cryptography. Then, once that's fully laid out and documented, you can start doing a prioritization and triage. Which are the bits of data you care most about? Which are the biggest legacies that you have to deal with? And what are the things you can deal with quickly? Never underestimate the power of just switching off a service you don't really need any longer. Never underestimate the quick, cheap fixes that will sort out your problems for you. Once you've done that, you can start piloting solutions. Never try and move everything in one go. Operational priorities will not forgive you if they make everything fall over every time you change one thing. Do a small pilot, and then once you're comfortable with that, move on to a biggest migration in step 4. Finally, and don't forget this bit, step 5, continue to monitor your cryptographic estate. Be ready to change, be agile. One and done is not a way to approach migration. Legacy will persist, and new varieties of vulnerability will arise and will need mitigation and solving. So keep on monitoring that. So the NCSC has, for step 1, started to authorize people to offer cryptographic consultation and advisory services with that sort of approval that comes with the expertise of NCSC of being scalable to industry. It's really getting that live picture on your network that really adds value to the discovery and inventory phase. Without wishing to tell tales out of school, yes, I've seen things when we've gone onto people's networks that I was surprised to still see existed in the 21st century. Some of those bits of legacy cryptography that I'd hoped to have seen the last of several years ago. Even more than that, I've been on investigations where people have assured us, yes, we have all the latest post-quantum algorithms loaded into the libraries, all of our equipment is up to date, but then when we've gone onto the network, we've seen that the link is not actually encrypted at all and no security is being offered. Get in there, start understanding your networks, because in this age of AI, it's all too easy for the adversary to be doing exactly the same thing, getting an automated process to look at the traffic coming in and out of your network, identifying vulnerability, finding legacy cryptography, and exploiting it. Cryptographic migration, because of the quantum threat, is a real thing. It's imminent, and you need help on the first steps. The first step is discovery, inventory, and documentation, and I'd like us to help you with that.